Well, good morning and welcome to the first proper garden tour in this garden for over a year. I say proper garden tour because if you follow the channel, you may know that just about every Saturday or Sunday, I post what I call a casual, unedited garden stroll around the garden, where sometimes we hit the high points, we hit the low points, but the main point of it is to sort of show you what's been changing, so that since I only do these proper garden tours every so often, you're kind of caught up on what's happening. But the garden is looking great. I'm filming this on August 9th, and the garden looks pretty darn good for early August. In fact, it's been a little bit of a strange year. Well, I don't know if there are strange years anymore. I think every year is just different. And the way it's different in this year is that everything is really delayed. We had a very cool spring. I assume that's what's going on here, but many of the dahlias are not in bloom yet. But yet other parts of the garden are still looking really good, whereas before, in a different year, I was going to say normal, but in a different year, it might have been a situation where some things would be going over. So instead of walking around the garden in a sort of methodical way, normally I'd start up here on the deck and show you these containers. I'm actually gonna sort of start where the light's good, and we're gonna move around the garden that way today. So I'm gonna start here at the patio border. This is probably the most colorful part of the garden. This is sort of the highest maintenance, most intense, biggest bang for your buck part of the garden, because I'm in this part of the garden all the time. There is structure here. So we've got a limelight hydrangea here. This is a very old limelight. For years I've been saying it's 15 years old, so now I gotta say it's probably 18 years old or so. It's just starting to come into bloom here. I do prune this pretty heavily because it would be gargantuan. And you can see it's fairly close to the path here. Because 18 years ago, I didn't think it was going to get as big as it did. We all know how big limelights get now, and if you want something that's a little bit more in scale with a lot of gardens, you might look at Limelight Prime or something else. There's a bajillion wonderful hydrangeas on the market. But we've got structure in the form of limelight. We've got a series of tiny tough stuff hydrangeas in here. We've got Kinsley's Ghost honeysuckle vine. There are perennials and shrubs mixed throughout this border, but within that I mix all of these annual plantings. So I'm just going to start here on the corner. This is the path that leads down to the garage, and we'll take a look at that in a little bit here. But we'll start here on this corner with the big limelight, like I said, which is really just now starting to come into bloom. I think we first started seeing flowers on it a week ago, maybe. Underneath it here, I've got 3 pop star hydrangeas. The flowers have gone over a little bit on it. There are new flowers coming through, and it will do that. It will keep blooming throughout the season, but this first flush is the big one. And I think even the dried flowers on it are quite pretty, although obviously the new ones, when you get that lime green with the blue coming through, I do treat it with aluminum sulfate to try to push out some blue color on it. And then we move on to the other parts of the garden here. In this front area here, this is where I've got tiny tough stuff hydrangeas sort of dotted through here. There's one back here. We move through here. And this is really structure. Again, flowers are kind of, we're past peak here, certainly, on these. I still think they look beautiful, and I still like them here. Beyond that, I've got a Kinsley's Ghost honeysuckle, which I prune into kind of, believe it or not, a tree form. It's a ton of pruning. This is a very vigorous vine. And so trying to get it into this tree form is indeed a lot of pruning. You can see it's got a few shoots coming up that I should pop in there and prune out so that I can keep that form, if I want to keep that form. In front of that, I put in a lot of dahlias. And I always do this border because there's so much happening behind this. This is a lot happening in the background here. So I do some things to bring some structure to this garden. The first is that I do have some boxwoods throughout this garden, I think 5 throughout this garden. And this helps bring just a little bit of calm, a little bit of structure, a little bit. Along this front edge, I like to do something that just is very repetitive. So this year I've done this Mila pineapple. I've planted 3 of those. And this one actually, it's bred to be it's bred for ornamental properties. But the pineapples are edible, small but edible. And there is one right there, and I'm looking very much forward to doing something with that. And then along the front edge, I usually plant, well, the past few years anyway, I've just planted something repetitive. This year I did gold dust, mercardonia, and sweet alyssum, just the little 6-packs of the sweet alyssum. And the mercardonia will look better later in the day. The flowers close up at night, so they're just starting to open up now. So we'll get a better yellow and gold mixture on this later in the day. I do try to keep the dahlia palette a little bit under control here. So one of my favorite go-to dahlias is always this one. This is Crichton Honey. It's just one that has always done well for me, and I love the look of it. The color scheme very much works here, in my opinion. And I do see a little, I don't know if you can see that, but there is a little cucumber beetle hiding in there who will eat those. Anyway, so I do plant probably 6 or 7 Crichton Honeys throughout here. This year I also added in this one. This is Lakeview Peach Fuzz, which is very much in that same color scheme, but different texture, taller, needs more staking, obviously. Also throughout here I have planted 3 Hudson River clematis and left them to scramble. I stake them up to about 1 foot and then I leave them to scramble. And this is a look that I love in my garden, and I have clematis all over, scrambling and climbing through things. And here it is, and you can see this is just one right here, and you can see it's intermingling with the tough stuff and coming up here and popping up. And what I found is that as long as it has fairly regular watering, this Hudson River clematis will bloom for me pretty much all summer. A really important feature in this garden, in my opinion, is this Amsonia that you see right here. So that's Amsonia hubrechtii. And let me come over here so you can see how it relates this year to, there we go. So you can see how it relates to the urn, and we'll get in there a little closer for the urn. So the centerpiece in the urn this year is a plant called Eupatorium elegant feather. It is a form of dog fennel, which many of you might think of or know as a weed. It is not a weed here. It's not something that we see here growing wild. Elegant feather is sterile. I have actually never seen it flower. If it does flower, it is sterile, so it will not weed around. It's a look that I love. I recognize that some people may not like this if they have battled this weed. I mean, you don't, even if it's not going to become a weed in your area, because of the type it is, if you're constantly pulling it out, you might not find that pretty. I happen to like it, and I also happen to love how it is interacting with the Amsonia hubrechtii here, both of which add a certain amount of lightness, I think, here. The Amsonia obviously more so than the elegant feather, but they work well together. This sort of chartreuse color of the Amsonia, I think, really lightens everything in this garden. And then in the urn, we have, let me just see if we can kind of get in there a little closer. This urn is just plunked right in the middle of the garden. And the containers are really getting full this time of year. But we've got white mandevilla, no, excuse me, it's Durvilla, no, Dippoldenia. We've got white Dippoldenia on the sides, Persian shield coming up in there, Terenia, we've got some Selenia begonias in there, some more Lobularia, Purple Heart. I jam them full. I believe in full containers, and that's the look that I happen to like. I don't actually often come around the back side of this garden, but we're going to do that today. And this is another perennial that works in here. This is just Agastache Blue Fortune. I do love the Agastache. It blooms for such a long time. This blue backdrop is also great when I view the garden from the patio there, looking this way. We've got some Calamintha Montrose White in there. There is more, as you can see, there's more Amsonia planted throughout this garden. So as they grow, I think we'll see some more of that texture coming through here. And here we have a purple smoke bush. This is Catinus purple. It's one of the early ones. This is not a new cultivar. I've had this one for a really long time. I actually gave it a very hard cutback this late year. It responded really well. As you can see, it's really set up some long stems of foliage. I prefer to grow smoke bushes for the foliage, so I'm not sad when I miss out on the flowers. Another clematis that is growing up here, kind of all over the place here, but I like to grow it up this smoke bush here. This is Princess Diana, and I love how that looks with the purple flowers, that bright pink. Really pretty. That is, as much as the flowers open on it, they stay this sort of cupped, pretty tubular shape. Very pretty. I also have a new clematis growing up here, and it's not flowering to my knowledge yet, but you can see it's just coming up through this viburnum here. There are some buds on it. So that's what I love to do with clematis, is just sort of drape them through shrubs. Here's another one right here, looking beautiful. I mean, I like it because it adds an element of interest to shrubs that are, you know, this viburnum obviously flowered ages ago. But here it's kind of getting another chance at flowering again. Here's the back side of the urn, so you can kind of see what it looks like from here. More boxwoods in there, and then we come over here. We do have some Joe Pye weed in here, which I thought I had lost, and it's back this year, which is interesting. And then this year we planted a new plant here. This is Seven Suns tree. This is the species of it. This is not one of the cultivars, so this will get very large. Heptacodium is the botanical name on that. So this will get very large. Which is what we want here. And we will control that with pruning. So right now, I mean, you can imagine that some of these branches that are going off to the sides kind of low, at some point those might get pruned off, but that's the beauty of this. It takes pruning really well. So since I replanted this area this year, some of the hostas, and I added in some Hakanacloa or Hakanacloa, however you want to say it, in here. This is Stripe It Rich, the Stripe It Rich variety, which is sort of the opposite. If you know Aureola, this is the opposite of that. This has a little bit more green in it. Those really are just trying to get reestablished now, because those were all transplanted in. And we're just going to come around this garden now. And this is always kind of a pretty view here. This little corner of the garden, I think, is looking, I've struggled with this corner a little bit, especially lately when we replaced this tree. This used to be a shady corner, and now it's not anymore because several trees were taken down to the south of it. So I've been kind of having to adjust that a little bit. Some of the things in here look very good. There's one thing that isn't looking great, which is this autumn frost heuchera here. There are other ones in here that look just fine, but basically, I think this is looking good. And one of the reasons why I think it looks good is that this year, or better this year than it has perhaps in other years, is that this year I added in some vertical interest, which you can see right here. With this is Acidanthera. This is peacock orchid, and this flower is a little bit spent, but you get the idea here on what those look like. I also added in a few petunias in here, which kind of plays off this sort of lavender-ish color scheme. So I think this area is working well because we've got some more color continuity in it, but also, you know, this is sort of one of my favorite things. This is the Lictrum. I think this one is splendid. And this plant should be standing like 6 feet tall, but it has basically leaned over, which I love, because it's creating this sort of ethereal cloud over this part of the garden. And it's just that sort of unexpected texture moment that I love. So let's take a look at the opposite side of the path and the other part of the patio before we move on. In the front here you see Salvia argentea. This is one of my must-grow plants. Some of these are new this year, some were from last year. It's generally a biennial, but I think you can see what's to love about this plant, which are these beautiful, huge, soft, kind of ruffly leaves. Here is Helen von Stein stackies. And so some people, you know, obviously these two plants have something in common, but you can see it's a much bolder effect with the Salvia argentea here. Pretty easy to grow from seed and becoming more popular, so you might actually start to find that in nurseries. So as we come along this way, you can see that I've just repeated that through. I've also added in some mondo grass this year, and of course you can't really go wrong with that black and white contrast. And then I put in a lot of this totally tempted vivid violet Kufia, and I just think it's kind of a nice little moment. Brought in some more purple. This is a eucomis called Sparkling Burgundy, which has not flowered yet, but fabulous foliage on it. Very reminiscent, by the way, really ties in well if we come over here. Very much ties in well with some of that pineapple that's across the way here. And then there are dahlias throughout here, which are not really blooming that much yet. We just are starting to get a flower here. They're generally in the orangey yellow category that I put in here. There is a clematis that scrambles through this bed too, which is done. That one's called Arabella, pretty much done. We do have a clematis that grows up this rosy teacups dogwood here. I'm trying to find a good spot for the light to show you it. Here we go. Here we go, some right there. It says Raguchi. Because like I said, if you are a tree or a shrub in this garden, you probably have a clematis growing up you. The ginkgo here is gnome or troll. I think it's gnome, ginkgo gnome, which has gotten really big over the years, far bigger than I expected it to. Still love it very much. I do sort of prune it up a little bit. Then we'll just take a quick look at this side of the patio. This container has really come into its own. It didn't look like a lot when I planted it, but now it's looking really nice. Got some beautiful Kent Beauty oregano in here, lovely little bee on it. This pink is Whirlwind Starlight Pink Scaevola. And then there is this really pretty low growing dahlia in here, the name of which I don't have handy. It's on a tag in there somewhere. And in the back here, we've got these gorgeous diamond spire gardenias. So it smells amazing. These gardenias did go out of flower for a little bit, but now they're covered in bloom, so they're coming back again. A little bit of texture back here with Carex Feather Falls. And then the vertical accent in these is actually summer hyacinth. So another bulb that's been brought in. And these are blooming again. Now I've already had some blooms, but you can see we've got some blooming there. But the foliage is a really nice accent in here as well. Now this part of the garden is normally where you would see this at this time of year, absolutely covered in dahlias. All my bigger growing dahlias are planted along the house here. And as you can tell, not a single one of them is flowering yet. The only dahlia that is flowering, which is actually planted in the front, is this little cute guy, and this flower is pretty much spent, but this little cute guy is called Buttercup. There's 4 or 5 of them planted along the front here, and the intention was for that to be just covered in these cute little yellow flowers. I guess it will happen. It's just taking a very long time this year. I do like to do something repetitive on this front border here. So, and actually I need to go in and sort of uncover these really pretty lavender lady mangaves. I've got 5 of them planted throughout here. The plants are starting to kind of grow around them. So I will kind of give them a little bit more room so we can see them. But you can see along here that they're all planted throughout there. And then in the front, I just have campfire bidens and lobularia, and maybe violet night, or one of those, some lobularia in the front there. And then we have, this is Nicotiana. I am a big fan of Nicotiana, even bigger fan of anything chartreuse. This is Nicotiana perfume lime, which grows short. So those don't really, well, I actually do end up staking them a little bit. Some of these I have to tie back so they don't lean too far forward. I think in a less full bed, that wouldn't be necessary. Oh, and I forgot that there's also salvia in there, which is not blooming. We haven't seen too much of the salvia yet, but this is a little combination that gives you, this corner gives you an idea of what that combination is intended to look like. The trellis here, back up for you here. The trellis here is an Above and Beyond rose, which is already flowered. I may get a few random flowers from it. And then there is a Pearl d'Azur clematis that just stopped flowering. And then we have the window box here, which is enormous, and I love it. It is getting to the point where I might have to go in there and start pruning, cautiously pruning things to edit things just a little bit. But I'm here for this very abundant, out of control look. I think if anything, I would probably prune out a little bit of the purple heart maybe. We might be getting a little too heavy on that. This is pink grapefruit, double super bells, new for next year, I believe. This is guacamole plectranthus. We've got some coral, light coral sun patience up there. And then if you notice on the, I've got two sort of bamboo trellises there. That is Fiona Sunrise Jasmine growing up there. And then I've got just wire vine as the trailer here, which I'm really enjoying because it's not so heavy. As we make our way around, we've got two more containers here. These are both full of golden curls. Willow, this is the second year for these in the pots. They've gotten really, really big. I don't know if we'll make it a third year just because, as you might imagine, they have filled up these pots and they are really water starving because they're willows. But underneath them, I have planted more of that light coral sun patience. I think I want to say Mango Madness verbena, which is the first time I found it, and it is a real keeper as far as I'm concerned. Really, and I love the combo of those. And then we've got Carrick's Ever Gold or Ever Rio there mixed in with those. I love the way these look. These containers really do need water once a day now, though. So we're at the part of the year where these two need water once a day. Two other containers to show you here on the deck. Just little Miss Figgy here, who overwinters in my basement, but we have figs on, which is exciting. And then the big planter. This is sort of an epically sized planter, which, let me back up so you can see why I like such a big planter in there. So our front door is really perched. Our whole foundation is raised quite a bit. And so in order to make this front door make sense, I feel like it helps to have something very large in this planter to sort of tie that together and bring that into scale. And so here we've got an ornamental banana. This is Encente ventricosum morali. It's a new one this year. I have another one that I've been growing for 4 years or so now, but it has just gone gangbusters. If you want to grow this plant, in my experience, give it a lot of Osmocote and a lot of water, and it will just go gangbusters for you. Then we have some dahlias in here. Got some sunshine ligustrum planted throughout here, which I'm loving. We've got this beautiful Indian Dunes pelargonium, which when I planted it, I wasn't planning on keeping the flowers. I just thought I was keeping it here for the beautiful foliage, but the flowers are perfect in here. Coralina super bells. This is a scented geranium that I think is a lime scented geranium, but it's quite rangy and kind of works as almost like a filler and a spiller. This is a new type of sweet potato, new variety of sweet potato vine. I can't tell you the name off the top of my head. And then this is this Rad Raz little dahlia in here. The one in the back is Melody Doro, and those I grew from tubers. These came as plants and are being sold as annuals, basically. And then on this corner, we have Bad Hair Day Mangave, but you can see that Bad Hair Day Mangave is trying to go out with a literal bang because it is sending up a flower, which I believe for this Mangave means this is the end for it. Some of them can flower and keep going, but I think this one's done. I have not seen any sign, I haven't looked closely, but I haven't seen any sign of pups coming off it. This flower grows probably 4 inches a day, so I'm interested to see what comes of it. This was sent to me as a extremely mature plant. It was in like almost a 3-gallon pot. So I think, you know, it was known that it didn't have a long lifespan ahead of it. So perfect excuse to grow it as an annual here in this container. Right off the patio here is what I call the circle garden, which is actually an oval. I like to play around with this part of the garden. So we have some standing elements in here and some elements get changed up every year. It's divided into 4 sections. Right here at the front, this is Midnight Sun Weigela, so sort of a mass planting of those. This is a lovely little Weigela. It gets very basic pink flowers that don't last very long. I'm not growing it for the flowers, I'm growing it for the foliage, which kind of looks like a coleus to me. Really beautiful, in my opinion. I love this here. It allows me to do something really gaudy in the middle here, and I have done that here this year. This is cherry caramel annual phlox, which seems to keep blooming and blooming and blooming as long as I keep cutting. And then in here we've got pink. There's a combination of a couple of pelargoniums here, all from the Big Ease series. This one right here is Pink Easy, or Big Ease Pink Batik. And those are kind of mixed through here. Then I've got rhubarb, which is still actually looking good. I could still make a rhubarb pie. I told you it's a strange year here. By the way, each segment has a boxwood in a pot in the center of it. This segment has a lot of cosmos, which are just starting to bloom. Some didicus, which is the first time I'm growing that. That's kind of a cute little thing. I haven't quite figured out. You know, it's really meant to be, I think, a cut flower. So it's a little floppy in here, but I'm okay with that. A few dahlias tucked in here, a few gladiolus tucked in here. This segment is kind of loud. Let's just say this is very loud. So in the back, I've got tiny tough stuff hydrangeas mass planted. Back there, we've got Bobo, and I'll show you the other side. And then in the front here, we've got this mix of skyscraper, orange, salvia, surefire, cherry cordial, begonia, and then mini me chartreuse coleus in here. This is all a little bit too much this year for me, but it is a good show. If it were just on its own, not with everything else, it'd be pretty fun. And then on this one, didicus dahlias, some scaevola mixed in there, etc. On the center, I grow a variety of clematis in there. Here's the Bobos. There are 6 or so in here. They've all been treated exactly the same way. They are widely different heights. We only have a handful of flowers on and a handful of flowers to come. There is no sign that they have been cut off. I have no idea why this is happening, but that's how it goes sometimes. So let's go back through the patio and take a little stroll down this path, which we walk on many times a day to get over to the garage. So this little island, when viewed from above, you can see that these 2 beds sort of connect across the path. There's a lot of veronica in here, much of which has been cut back and is actually on a second bloom. This white wands veronica has definitely been cut back hard. and is starting to do a second bloom. Dark reader geranium, which kind of seeds itself throughout here. This is a blue magoo Picea engelmanni here, which has been suffering with some needle cast, but the bare legs are covered by a clematis, and this one is called Alba luxurians, which just sort of drapes through this tree. You can see it climbing up through there and hanging over here. This is new American ginkgo. It's got some poppies that have sort of flopped on it. And then I accented all this with some dahlias over here as well. You can't see too many of them because they're also just starting to come into flower. This one is kind of spent, but this is Kelgi Ann, which is a really pretty water lily type, but those flowers are pretty much shot. On this side, this is Acer shirazawa moonrise. And then we just kind of have some sort of shade things mixed in there. So growing on the garage here, and what you see around the blue door there is a climbing hydrangea. It's planted on the north side of the garage here, and in the past few years I've started letting it kind of come around the front. My hope is that it'll make it over to the pergola over on top of the garage. It needs a little bit of pruning on the top. I don't really want it to be growing up on the roof, and probably needs a little pruning around the door because it is a little hard to get in and out of the door right now. It takes well to that. No problems there. We'll just take a quick look at this container before we move on. Mostly begonias in here. I'm really happy with this container. The vine here is Fats hedera angiostar, which I overwinter inside every year. It's not hardy here. This is common name is tree ivy for this. Not hardy here, so I overwinter inside. So this is its third year, and I've been wintering it inside over time. I love a begonia, and these are looking great. This kind of peachy yellow one is called Citrix. This is Iconia citrix. It might be a newer variety, I'm not sure. I'm really loving that this year. So again, in this part of the garden, this is something where I mix in annuals and perennials. So we've got some sedums here. This might be neon, but I'm not sure. I actually love it when it's this color, this sort of limey green color. And then in the front, I've planted some Queen Tut along there and some of this summer-long Agastache. And then this is actually a full-size tiny quickfire. There's a few of them planted in here. It is slow to come into flower, but I love this hydrangea because I think you use it, think of it as a perennial, use it as a perennial right at the front of the border. And then I have some pink scaevola mixed in here again, a variety of both cat's pajama and cat's meow nepeta in here. But then behind that, I've put in a whole bunch of zinnias, which are just starting to flower, actually. They're supposed to be all queeny lime ones, but we got some orange ones popping up in there, which is fine. Here's one right here. Behind that, this is an aster, I believe, so that'll bloom in fall. And then I mix in some dahlias through there, and then we come into Millennium alliums, one of my go-to plants, probably one of my top 5 plants to have in the garden that I just wouldn't want to garden without. Here is another clematis. This is Sweet Summer Love, which is a really beautiful late blooming one. Maybe I'll drop in a picture of my mom's, which puts this one to absolute shame. And you can see through here, I actually have 2 other clematis blooming right now. And I can't tell you which one this is. This is actually blooming up this viburnum. And then in the back here, that's pink mink, which is blooming up the European hornbeams that create the backdrop, sort of a screen. You can see they're starting to come together. It's been a long period of growing these for probably 5 or 6 years. They're finally starting to create kind of that wall that I wanted back there. This is a Thai giant colocasia. It was not really meant to be here, but I there's a little bit of a competition among some fellow gardeners about who can grow the biggest leaf. I think it's safe to say it's not going to be me. I have to grow it in a pot. I did not have a good spot for it in the ground, so I'm growing it in a pot. Behind that, though, is this kind of bluish foliage, is Rosa glauca, which I grow for the foliage, which is currently a little tattered up because of the Japanese beetles. It gets small pink flowers. It's nice, but it's a very carefree rose. I don't do any fussing with it. This is Flavorette Rose, I think, which is pretty and putting out some flowers, but the Japanese beetles are here right now, so it's hard to keep those things going. A couple more hydrangeas that have been here for a long time. Quick Fire on the right, and I think it's Firelight on the left. That's some Autumn Joy sedum there. This part of the garden is a circle. So this grass that you see here is a circle, which gives us a little bit of grass, a little rest for the eye, but the structure is created with the grass being the positive and the like the positive visual element, and the beds being taking up the negative space, if you understand what I'm saying there. A couple years ago I replanted this with basically almost all lady's mantle, and there's some cat's meow nepeta in here. This lady's mantle was cut back a month ago, and it fully cut back, and you can see the foliage sprung back. The foliage looks really good. Don't think we'll get another bloom on it, which is fine, but it really nice fresh foliage to carry us through the season there. We've got some clematis that drape over the wall. Here's one of them right here, Anushka, I believe. And then actually I have sapphire indigo down there, which I cut back. It was a little crispy, so I cut it back. We might get more flowers out of that. Along the back on the deck there are more limelight hydrangeas. And then this is the original banana, which overwinters inside every year. This one is on its 4th season in the garden now. There is now this is a tropical plant, so it needs to come in and get stored dormant in the basement. I got a ton of videos on that if you're interested in that process. There is a new hardy banana out called Ever Red. Kind of has a similar look to it. And because I have liked having a banana in this particular spot, I am slightly inclined to look for that and possibly start growing that one. We'll see. This little garden got a little bit of an extension this year. There was a little drainage area for our gutters that was kind of out in the lawn, and I thought that was so silly, so I just extended the bed. So this front part of the bed is all new, and I did one of the things I do a lot when I create a new bed. I basically filled it with annuals this year. So this is actually a container right here, which I'm loving. This is Mona Magic Plectranthus here, which does have purple flowers. I haven't seen them yet. It's okay, because I think the foliage is absolutely stunning. We've got some Beacons Impatiens in there, and this variegated Transcantia in there. And then I just kind of spilled some more of those Impatiens out here, put in a little bit of Carex, some more Queen Tut around where that gutter drain is, so that when that area does get wet, that Queen Tut papyrus grass can handle that just fine. And then flanking both sides of the stairs here, I have Haas Halo hydrangeas on both sides. I used to have Incrediballs there, and they got very floppy over here in this sort of part sun situation. The tree that you see here is Aurelia Silver Umbrella. It's just, I can't believe how much it has grown. In fact, it's grown so much that it is to the point where I need to start pruning it a little bit off the deck. I do love how it wraps that corner of the deck though. This is a newly planted dogwood. This is green sleeves planted in spring. Dogwoods tend to grow up before they grow out. They need a few years of maturity before they start widening out. So eventually this will become kind of a wide habit. Right now it obviously looks very vertical. I'm loving the alliums flowering through here, just starting to flower. They last for so long. And a couple of beautiful echinaceas in here. I always forget the name of this one. I think it's hula something. And some Price's White echinaceas back there. And we have a smattering of phlox in here, but I tell you what, it is really hard to keep the deer from eating the phlox. I've got the deer managed pretty well this year with repellents, but phlox are always a problem. And then I've got some of this dark sedum through here. It's a nice, I think this is a nice little corner. There's some nepeta planted in here too, but nice little corner right now. This is sort of, we're starting to get into a little bit more natural planting as we go throughout here. Now this garden would be greatly aided by the dahlias that I planted in here, but they're just starting to flower here. I do need to actually deadhead the few that have flowered, but there's Cornell in here. This is, I believe, Cornell Bronze. I think this is Tiffany Lynn right here. There's some asters blooming in the back there. The seed heads that you see here are, this is Russellinia, Phlomis, no, it's not Phlomis Russellinia, it's Phlomis tuberosa, Amazonia. And this is obviously spent, but I do love the seed heads on this plant quite a bit. Again, relying heavily on some string theory Amsonia here. And that is a new to me nepeta. That is chartreuse on the loose. This year I also planted in 3 mangaves in here. These are ones that I overwintered. This is Navajo Princess. 1, 2, and then 3 is getting a little bit crowded out right now by the Stokesia Riptide there. But there's the 3rd one there. This is a nepeta right here. And over on this side, we have some Stachy's Hemelo, things like that. Ginkgo, that is a very misshapen ginkgo. Poor thing, it's a gold spire. It actually, this is the top of it bending over this way. Something will have to be done. We'll have to make some decisions on what we're gonna do with it. When it was very young, a tree was dropped on it, and so it lost its leader, and I never really was able to get that leader to stand up straight. Tricolor beech right here is always beautiful. In fact, more beautiful if we look at it from this way usually, where we can get a little backlighting going on. Some more hydrangeas going on here. This is Haas Halo. I think Invincible Spirit, the original. And then around the corner here, that's one of the few Incrediballs that's left on the property. On this side, I have my newish hedge planted last fall of flowerful hydrangeas. So this is one of the new arborescens types hydrangeas bred for stiffer stems. What I like about this one is that, there is another one that I think is coming out next year, which is called Incredible Stormproof. What I like about Flavorful, personally, is that, well, I've not grown Stormproof yet, so I can't speak to that. I hope to give it a try. I like the size of the flowers. I wanted something that looked a lot like an Annabelle, flower-wise, without the floppy stems of an Annabelle. So I had ripped out the Annabelles here. What I'm really surprised about and very much loving is the very dark foliage on these, which I just think the foliage is just primo on these. I've underplanted them with Lady's Mantle. Those are new plants this year. I can't believe how well that all filled in. And this garden has really improved this year, I think. I've tried to simplify the planting. So in the middle here, we've got Tough Stuff hydrangeas. We've got an espaliered Asian pear in the back there. Calamintha Montrose White, some alliums mixed in here. I put in a few Liatris, not a ton, but there are a few Liatris in here, and then some Sanguisorba is in here. And for the most part, that's it. Now there is a peony that grows over here. I leave it here because it was here when we got here. It is the only plant that still exists in this garden that was here when we bought this house, and I sort of feel an obligation to leave that peony here as sort of homage to what was. This is good old-fashioned Wine and Roses Weigela. You wouldn't know it, but the electrical business is back there. And so that is a great screen to cover up all those boxes of stuff back there. This is the other climbing hydrangea in the yard. This one is very old, probably pushing 20 years on that, I would say. It grows on an ash tree. The ash tree was alive when it started growing there, and then like all the ashes here, it died. And so we cut it off, and so it's basically a totem pole. At this point, the climbing hydrangea might be holding it up. This is what I call the hot border, although ironically I see a lot of unhot things currently flowering in it. But I do try to stick my oranges, my yellows, my reds over here. And here we have bleeding hearts, heliopsis. There are some sanguisorbas in here. This sanguisorba got a little taller than I expected it to, so I'll probably move that next year. Make a little note to move that. And we have some beautiful lilies and things growing in here. There is a clematis that grows up this little piece of driftwood here. This is niobe. This is its sort of second flowering. It's been flowering before. There is more of that bleeding heart heliopsis behind there. And then this is monkshood right in the middle, which is really beautiful in fall. It gets this, obviously beautiful bright blue in fall. Monkshood is quite one of those sort of poisonous plants. So I like to plant it in the middle of the bed where I don't have to worry about it. Just as a note, back here is just regular old-fashioned, I don't know what name, globe thistle. And I think it looks so pretty. It does its thing. Nothing bothers it. And I think it's such a pretty little accent back there in that corner. This shrub right here, by the way, is Erixa japonica, which I got at Song Sparrow Nursery when Song Sparrow Nursery still existed. Some of you might remember it was Clem's Song Sparrow Nursery. They used to have an open day where you could actually shop at the nursery, and I went there. Again, this is a decade or more ago probably, and they said, you got to have this plant. And so my mom, my sister-in-law, and I all got this plant. It's doing great for all of us, and I've never seen it anywhere else. It has this beautiful shiny foliage that is totally deer-proof. And it doesn't smell as much right now in spring. You can kind of rub it. It has a slightly citrus scent to it, probably one of the reasons why it's quite deer-proof. Anyway, I prune it a lot. It's just a nice shrub. I'm always surprised that I've never seen it anywhere else. Here's the shade border, which has seen a few changes over, well, certainly this year, but over recent years in general. This was one of the first gardens that I developed here because when I first came to this garden and we had just bought our house, we didn't have a lot of money to spend on plants, which is, pretty common. And I joined an online plant co-op. And we bought plugs. The person who ran the co-op would buy plugs wholesale, and then we'd all chip in for them. And so one of the things you had to do with that was buy plants you didn't necessarily want because you'd have to support filling trays. So most of these hostas that I have here came from that program. Some I love. Most of them I have no idea which ones they are. But it was sort of how this garden was established. And now, of course, I've been refining it over the year. I added this water bowl in last year. This is actually a fire bowl that I got on Etsy and had the maker plug the hole. It's a little bit out of level right now, which is kind of driving me nuts. I think it's a nice little accent piece in a very busy area. I mean, this is a very textural, busy area, which I don't mind, but this is a little bit of a respite here, and I like this a lot. The grass in the front here is Carex humulus hexi. And then I've got blue mouse ears planted throughout. Now the blue mouse ears hostas have lost a little bit of that blue color and are probably getting a little overwhelmed. So I might have to edit this just a little bit. But in spring, this was like a perfect combo. I just loved it. That astilbe is an astilbe called pumila, which I saw on a garden tour in Pennsylvania and learned that it is one of the more, actually probably the most dry soil tolerant astilbes out there, and it's blooming really well. So I'm very happy with that one. I'd actually like to add some more of that to the garden. This is very much a textural moment through the garden here. One of the new additions this year is this Northwind. Well, it's a Japanese and Korean maple hybrid. And then this is another Japanese maple, Korean maple hybrid, I believe. This one's called Origami. Both of these are really important additions. And then we had a different bench here. We added in this beautiful bench here. And then this corner over here, there are separate videos on this, but this is all new this year. So this used to just kind of fade away around this beech tree here. Now we've extended it so that this arc matches the circle garden here. And so we get, it's a much better feel. It was something I realize now I should have done before. Now, I've done a whole video talking about all the plants here, so I won't go into too much detail on them, except to just point out this very cool Himalayan cobra lily. There are 3 of them here. It's called Silver Center is the variety. You can kind of see on this one, oh, shadow. You can see on this one a little bit more of what it does with the Silver Center. I had bought 3 bulbs of this on Etsy. This one was the biggest one, this one was the smallest one, and I do have a 3rd one, but it was eaten by deer. I hope it comes back next year. And then this is Moonstone Picea glauca in the middle here. It's actually quite sparkly right now because it's got a little bit of dew left on it. And then this is another Arabella clematis that I planted in here, which will kind of grow up and through the moonstone and around the lady's mantle and into the Hacklenacloa all gold. This is a relatively new shrub border. I just decided that this side we didn't need grass over here. It was ridiculous that we were doing that. So a few years ago, planted primarily Haas Halo hydrangeas right here. This is pinky pollen hydrangea. We've got bottlebrush buckeyes that I've been working on establishing for a number of years now. They're taking their time. They don't get a ton of water, but we do have a beautiful monarch on one right now. Those flowers are the most, when you get in there and look at them, they're just the most elegant, interesting, exotic looking flowers on a native. And then this area, I just did a ground cover planting of a variety of carex and some native Pachysandra procumbens in here to hopefully cover this up. So the mulch hopefully is temporary here just to get those established. And then I've gone through this in a video as well, but this little half moon of grass that you see here is intended to, it serves an important purpose, which is that back there is where we get bulk deliveries. So here's the end of the driveway. If someone needs to drop off a big delivery of compost or whatever, pick your bulk soil, whatever, we have them back in the driveway and then back in through here and then dump that load right through there. So they can drive right over the grass, but when there isn't something there, it still looks good. And we've used this Russian cypress or Siberian cypress, Microbiota decussata, as sort of a hedge around this. We're in early morning here, so there's a fair amount of sun here, but this is certainly part sun at most and probably part shade. And so far this plan has been working great. We've had one trailer already had to drive over that grass and it looks great. So I did want to give you an update on the border that we did with the neighbors. So this is a project, this is the 3rd season for all these plants to grow and they are really starting to leap. It's amazing what we've seen happen just this year or the past 2 years. And the whole idea behind this planting was to create some lower screening. We had enormous overgrown arborvitaes in this area that were eaten up by the deer to about 8 feet. So there was no screening at ground level. Any screening happened from 8 feet and above. And really that's not very practical screening. when your driveways are basically right next to each other. So we went to the neighbors and I pitched them this plan of removing those trees and planting it with what you're about to see. They like the idea, and so most of this is actually planted on their property. We only own about 4 to 6 feet on the other side of our driveway. Everything else is their property, so everybody signed off on everything. I did all the planting and the removing of trees. It was my project. This is all about low maintenance, but there is some weed pulling to do. But I took care of all the watering as we're getting things established. But here, let's show it to you. So I wanted to create a mixed hedge here so that if some insect or bug or some disease comes and wipes out something, I don't lose a whole hedge of things. Plus, I happen to think that a mixed hedge is a far more interesting planting to look at. And we had a straight hedge of arborvitaes here, and it was a totally unsuccessful thing. So down here is the hemlock, which I really love. The hemlock is wonderful, very relatively shade tolerant, needs some shade actually, evergreen, and in the East Coast these are kind of getting wiped out by woolly adelgids. We don't have those in Wisconsin yet. They are in Michigan. They will come here. I'm hoping my one little hemlock will not draw the attention of woolly adelgids, but you are able to treat for that insect. In the front here is some very tall durvillas. This is Kodiak red. You wouldn't know what color they are supposed to be in terms of the foliage color. It doesn't matter. They have created really quite a hedge themselves here and gotten taller than I thought they would, all of which is fine. It all works out, because sometimes I actually park my car right here. Now the neighbors don't have to look at the car. They're just finishing up flowering here. They look a little chlorotic in some spots. I am not worried about them at all. Behind there, we've got a fire spire hornbeam. There are 3 others, one right there, or 2 others, one right there and one right there. Those have really put on some growth this year. Here we have a little trio of Norway spruces. This is Cupressina. These are tall, basically columnar Norway spruces. Norway spruces seem to do very well here. These have almost doubled in size in 3 years, and I'm not kidding. This tall one in the back, the tallest of the 3, was a 7-foot tree when we started, and I'm telling you, that thing is, if you go up to the very tip of growth on it, it's 15 feet tall. So it's shocking how much those have grown. Supposedly they get 6 feet wide. I think they're going to get wider than that, to be honest. It's fine. They create a nice little block here. This is Cornus moss, and I have shockingly, there is a clematis growing up that, but I just transplanted it this year, so I don't see any flowers on it yet. In the front here, I did a whole bunch of clethra. Couple different varieties here, 16 candles and hummingbird, I believe. And we have other things planted in here. We have a couple of Ditzias in here. This is Chamaecyparis soft serve false cypress, which is the same as Dow whiting. So if you know Dow whiting, it's the same variety. It's just that when it's in the proven winners line, it's called soft serve. And this is Twister Swiss stone pine, which is really very slow growing. And I'm looking forward to it growing. It's a slow grower though. But you can see how nice these fire spire hornbeams are looking. They're really looking good. And then we've got various other shrubs planted throughout here. We've got some bluebird in here. This is, I think it's sapphire surf. We've got iceberg alley, sage willow back there. Another pagoda dogwood with a beautiful swallowtail on it right now. Look at that guy. Just sunning himself there. So pretty. And then in here, we're lacking a little bit of height right now, but I've got some panicle hydrangeas that are new here that I've grown here. Those are going to get height on them, so that will fill in some of those gaps. But overall, I'm really happy with how this is looking, and the neighbors are too, so that works out great. Farther down this driveway planting, I just wanted to point this out. This is nothing fancy. One of the first things we did in this property was plant 5, I think these are cranberry viburnums, Wentworth maybe. Only 3 of them survived, but there is there's a shed. we'll just say it's a shed behind here. The neighbor's shed is behind here. These have proven to be an amazing visual hedge. They were very inexpensive to buy. Highly recommend these. They have beautiful berries on them, which will turn, the birds absolutely go nuts for them. Right now they're this beautiful yellow color. They will turn beautiful red color. When it gets a little hanging over the driveway, which it is right now, you can chop what you need to. And they grew pretty quick. And they're growing in a lot of shade. They're growing, I mean, there's a maple tree that they're kind of half under here. And they're probably, you know, that's another 15 feet tall probably there. So anyway, I just wanted to point those out because they're a very ordinary plant that served such a good purpose, and they did their job well and very inexpensively. And it's really been a lifesaver for us having those here. So I think we're gonna go to the other side of the property this way. I call it the other side of the property because there's a creek that doesn't run much, but does run in spring, dividing the property in half. So I think we'll go here and then we'll track back on everything. This is Ligularia dentata, Desdemona, planted all along the creek here. It is a prolific reseeder. I mean, you can see it is popping up all over the place. I will have a lot of seeding to do, seedling pulling to do, but it has done a great job on the banks of this creek here because weeds will grow here, and these shade out the weeds really well. They're very pretty. They're looking quite good. Some years they're very damaged by slugs. This year that hasn't been that big of a problem. Here's a little view of the creek. It's, like I said, it's not running right now. Well, this is a really pretty view here right now, actually, so we can talk about this garden. This is the garden that I designed, well, actually, Roy Diblick and I designed together, but it was mostly Roy's design. And it struggled a little bit last year because we had a real bad jumping worm problem in this part of the garden last year. Did not get rid of the jumping worms. There is no getting rid of jumping worms, but I did come and give this part of the garden a really big dose of compost. And I feel like the plants needed a little oomph. So right now, what's flowering in here is, let me come this way. So this is Dischampsia goldtau flowering in the front here, which just creates this beautiful halo. We've got a mass planting of 2 different types of alliums there, Summer Beauty and one called Shorty Eye, which is one that Roy discovered on Northwind, which is a sort of shorter version, go figure. Then we've got some golden showers, coreopsis blooming through here. The salvia is working on putting out a second set of flowers here, as we get over there. This grass that you see right there, that's Millennia transparent, which is a great grass. I have it in other parts of the garden as well. This is a pagoda dogwood here that did grow in the pots where I currently have the golden curls willow. I just transplanted it into here. So here we have white swan, echinacea. The grass that you see there is Millennia Paul Peterson. And here we've got the, this is Stacky's humalo. There's also some limonium. There are other things growing through here as well. This grass in the front here is Sporobolus aroides, which I'm learning takes a really long time to get established. It's finally starting to look like something. I almost gave up on it this year. It's finally starting to look like something. I think I probably need to pull a few more floral elements through this part right here. And this is a geranium macrorrhizum situation that, you know, this can keep spreading on you. So I'll probably pull a little bit of that out and dot in some more of these allium. Like, it shouldn't really be a big block. We should be pulling some of those alliums and some of those other plants into this a little bit. I repeated some of those plants over here, so you'll see the Dischampsia goldtau on this side. See, this is a really lovely little effect here with the salvia coming up through the Dischampsia. Very pretty. We've got some more thalictrum blooming in this garden, and you really have to be in the garden to appreciate it, I think. It's not something you can really appreciate from far away, but it's a nice little reward for walking over here. Really pretty. This stuff is standing up nice and tall. Looks really good. And then we've got this is a new tree this year, which is name on screen. I can't remember. And then also we've planted this cute little picea here this year and extended this bed out a little bit, I will admit. I have not properly edged this yet, but I did plant around this with some Heuchera villosa autumn bride, a little bit of goat's beard, smaller version of goat's beard, a little bit of geranium cantabrese. And we've got some lungwort pulmonaria in here. This is more of that Siberian cypress that I planted as a hedge off the driveway. I think here you can see how beautiful this is as a ground cover. And then these amazing things right here, these gargantuan things. This is Japanese Petasites, aka butterbur. It is aggressive and to be watched. It is not the invasive one. This is not, imagine what the invasive does if this is not the invasive one. It is very happy here growing along this stream. It has come as far as I'm allowing it here, so from now on I will be, making sure it doesn't go any further this way, but it is stunning and I love it. We do have some beautiful trees here. Right here is this gorgeous, this is an American beech. We have two more over here. A few years ago we lost the biggest one that was here, and you can see the stump on the mound. It was just rotten from the bottom. I think it had been buried too deeply when they built that mound. That's my theory anyway. But it was a stunning tree, and I adore these trees. So this area needs a little bit of water, but I like these hanging baskets here. Now I need to prune the tree a little bit here. We've got some low hanging branches again, but these have been fun to play around with. Because I haven't made hanging baskets in ages until I did this last year. I feel there's a few things that need to be pruned in here, and they could use some water. That is the problem with hanging baskets. But I have basically planted them all the same way with the same plants, and then they circle around here. And then this is actually another fire bowl that's been repurposed as a planter down here. This is another one of those little moments in the garden that rewards you for walking over here. This is not something you can really see that well from other places. I like things that are around corners that make you feel thankful that you went around the corner, if that makes any sense. We are going to return to the vegetable garden, but let's take a stroll over here. This shade garden is continually in development. So it's getting there, but it's never really my priority. So it needs to take it will, in due time, we will have that done. Here is a Calamintha Montrose White, looking great. Just starting to, with the exception of this one in front, just really starting to come into bloom here. And this is Nepeta subsessilis Prelude Blue, which has been blooming for months now. I did cut some of the flowers back, and it does look like we're gonna get some rebloom on it. Like these, I think, aren't as great looking anymore, but some of these, like, why would I cut that back? That's still looking great. Some more Amsonia through here, some phlox that were really beautiful called Blue Flame. You can see some of them. It's this really kind of bright purple color here. Unfortunately, again, it's the one thing the deer are going after. It's really a shame. I do love phlox, but they are really, for me, it's the deer really, really love them. This is kind of a, let me zoom in here so you can see this. Kind of a really nice moment here. This is Liatris and Raspberry Wine Monarda. I mean, it looks really pretty the way it's lit right now, but a really nice little combination. And then through here, again, we've really moved into a very natural part of the garden. Here, there are a lot of natives in here, but non-natives as well. This is another globe thistle. This is star white or something like that. And then interestingly, this is Veronicastrum, Queen of Diamonds. It's much shorter this year than it normally is. And it's just starting to flower here. It should get kind of a light pink flower. I don't know why it's shorter than normal, but it is. And then I have put some dahlias through here, although I don't know why, because they are very slow to bloom. Just HS date. So HS date doesn't need staking. It does need deadheading, but it doesn't need staking. It's pretty easy maintenance kind of plant. This beautiful little guy is Amelia coccinea. This is Irish Poet. I grow it from seed. I was hoping it would reseed this year, and it didn't. So all the ones you see are new this year. There's some stackies in here. There's a variety of things planted in here. Big Baptisia. I love Baptisia foliage. Beautiful, big, bold, new. This is new-ish. Silphium terabithium. And it's gonna flower, and when this baby is mature, this guy's flower stalk will be like 9 feet tall probably. It does reseed aggressively. Well, I don't know if aggressive is the right word. It reseeds very readily. So what I will do is enjoy the flowers for a little bit, and then I will cut them off before they reseed. Here's another one over here. It's blown around in the breeze, but you can see, I mean, I'm here for the foliage, right? This is all, I mean, these flowers are fine, but I'm growing it because of that big, bold foliage. Beautiful native plants. You know, you don't find bold foliage when we think bold foliage, a lot of times we think tropicals, but there's bold foliage in a native plant. This is basically a sun border, by the way. We are early-ish in the morning here, so the sun has not hit this part of the garden yet, but this is pretty much hot sun for much of the day. So we're coming back down the driveway now. And here we have Pycnanthemum muticum, which is the perennial plant of the year, a plant that I love. It is mountain mint. It's not a true mint, but it is spready-ish. I've not had any problem managing it where I want it and taking it out where I don't. It's not like a mint you can't get rid of at all. This is, I think it's called Baby Joe right here. I thought it was going to be shorter than it is. It got a little taller than it is. We're going to work on this area next year. I think I'm going to pull out some more of this Geranium macrorrhizum and try to get some more. You can see I have a few little echinacea in there. Try to bulk up the echinacea show a little bit in there. Along this pathway that we're about to walk down here is, this is more Hacklencloa. Now this right here is Aureola, which is a very common variety, but you see the green popping up? That is all where it has reverted here. And I've been letting it revert. I kind of like the combination. It probably will eventually all be the green, which is maybe something I want to stop, I don't know. But where you see the green, that is not me planting Hacklencloa macra, the straight species. That is Aureola reverting. The astilbes are done here. I have Astilbes chinensis visions, just visions I think. They're done, but we leave the seed heads because they're still sort of pretty. This is some more Diane Claire pulmonaria through here. This is Hacklencloa or Hacanacloa, all gold, mixed in through here. And then we've got a few Ectias or Simicifugas through here. Did plant a few castor beans here to replace a dogwood that didn't make it in this spot. I think it's too wet right here for dogwoods. So then we come down the path. I did put in some white liatris here. Here's some of that Joe Pye weed. This is a self-sown Nicotiana. Quite pretty with the dark purple throats on it. Hang on. Those dark purple throats on it are quite pretty. And then we come down this pathway this way, and this is where you can see that Monarda and Liatris combination. Dischampsia gold towel through here. There's some prairie drop seed planted throughout here in some of these places. Well, it doesn't seem to do super well, so I've kind of been going to other grasses with it. More alliums. I just can't go wrong with alliums, in my opinion. I love them. Here's some beautiful backlit liatris coming up through here as well. This area is primarily Carex pennsylvanica and has created a really nice map, but the lily of the valley is winning the battle. So in order to save the Carex pennsylvanica, I have to come in and deal with the lily of the valley, which is very, very difficult to really win that war. But I do have things like shredded umbrella plant coming up through the Carex pennsylvanica, a few hostas, which need to be sprayed to within an inch of their life to be protected from the deer over here, some toad lilies, some thalictrum. So it's not just a mass of just the Carex here. I started trying to, this path got a little too wide, so I started putting some things along the edge here. So I've got hardy plumbago planted. I hope it makes it through the winter this year. It did not last year, but I'm trying it again because I really love that ground cover. And a few of these new feathered friends line of ajuga, which are like brightly colored, and I'm hoping those kind of take off too. This is an eryngium called Prairie Moon, which is a shorter growing version of Rattlesnake Master. And this is regular old Echinacea pallida. And it might be my favorite of all the echinaceas. I really love it. It's just very simple. There's nothing fancy about it. It's no weird color. Really like that a lot. What you see growing over here is actually comfrey. This is Russian Bocking 14, which is a sterile variety. So it's not supposed to seed all over the place like some of them do. I think it's a pretty plant. It's very deer resistant and it flowers really nicely. I like the foliage. It grows underneath a spruce in shade. I think there's something to be said for it. All right, let's take a look at the vegetable garden. I've got the boxwood hedge in the front here, which is supposed to be cloud pruned. Last year, I went off on a wild hair and pruned it really funky and hated it. So they've been growing out of my bad pruning job from last year. Little boss clematis here. This guy is seeding all over the vegetable garden, so I have a lot of seedlings of it. The vegetable garden, despite being extraordinarily behind, based on what I know to happen in this garden, is really looking pretty, actually. There are some things that are looking very, very good. Basically, we've got a lot of beans starting to grow here, but the cucumbers are finally starting to produce. The cucumber plants look really good. We've got several, I'm going 3 or so different varieties on there. Nigella has seeded itself all over the garden, which is fine because I think it's really pretty. I have had 2 tomatoes out of this garden so far. The tomatoes are just getting going. Meanwhile, the hot peppers, I just picked a whole bunch of them yesterday, so that none of that makes sense, but we do have like a really beautiful jalapeno in there. These 4 beds in the middle here I use as sort of cut flowers, but I also grow the sweet peas on them. So it's August here. The sweet peas are looking great. So, and smelling great. They are just absolutely, absolutely beautiful. I will come through and pick a big old bouquet of them when I'm done shooting this. But they are just looking gorgeous. I put more didicus in here. That's the didicus, so that I feel more than happy to cut those. This is Madame Butterfly. It's either bronze with white or bronze snapdragons. These will keep producing for me all year. I like to let them flop because they get kind of interesting shape to them. I probably let the straw flowers flop a little too much, but another flower that I really find myself loving. The amaranth that you see in here has all self-seeded itself, which is perfectly fine with me. What else do we have growing here? This is a snapdragon that was a AAS All America Selections winner. I'm not so sure this is my color scheme. Grows really well. I'm just not sure that the color is for me. I did put some more of those cherry caramel phlox over here too. So again, for cutting, although I'm happy to cut the other ones as well. And I think there's some other things like zinnias growing in here. Oh, look at this. Look at this one right here. Look at the blue on that. Oh, gorgeous. This is the squash bed, as you can tell. Got little baby butternut growing there. So there's honey nuts, butternuts, and zucchini growing in here. Just picked my first zucchini yesterday. This is the garlic bed. So the garlic should not still be here. Normally I would have picked this in mid-July. We're getting close to it being ready to pick, but as you can see, we only have really like one set of leaves browning. So it's still not quite time to pick this. So hopefully in the next week or so, we'll be picking some garlic, and then this bed will be freed up to plant something else in. This is herbs and beans here. The lettuce is pretty much shot, but I think it's kind of pretty, and if it flowers, that'd be okay with me. Some dahlias seeded themselves into this bed, so they get to stay if they want to do that. And I have pruned up all of the espaliers that are in here, so you can see that I did some pruning on this is the Belgian fence. This is Royal Raindrops crabapple. I started these from whips 5 years ago now. You can see it's sort of a diamond pattern. Gave those a really nice pruning because they were quite wild. Same with the pear over there, and if we can, we're in the light here, but if we can, here's the Liberty apple, and we've got lots of apples on. So hopefully we'll have a nice harvest of those. The lotus did not bloom for the purposes of this video, unfortunately, but it recently bloomed, which you can tell from those two seed heads there. I enjoy the seed heads as much as the flowers. And then I do grow a few extra dahlias get put along the edge here. There's some cosmos there. Things kind of get plunked in. I sort of meant to plant the entire edge this year with annual seeds, and that didn't happen. Okay, so I just want to make our way. There's only one thing left to show you, but I'm just going to make our way back to the deck so I can show you the containers on the deck, which are probably in a little bit better light now. You can really see as we come here, you can really see the Millennia Paul Peterson and how pretty that is with it flowering, and how nice that white swan echinacea looks through there. Really happy with how that's looking. This has really come into its own this year too. Before we go up on the deck, I'll just show you, this is the Lilac Days rose, which just keeps blooming and blooming and blooming. Those are new flowers with a new Japanese beetle. These guys can finally be cut back, deadheaded. I can smell the gardenias right now. So these planters are really doing well. I'm very happy with them. Just one Coralina Superbells in there. And then I'm loving this Terrenia. I didn't have a lot of experience with it before this year. This is a little Roea that I just stuck in there. This is this Plectranthus Mona Lavender. And then the purple Bellvine is finally starting to make its way up, which is awfully nice. There's a sister planting to that over here. The Guacamole Plectranthus in this one is a little bit more prominent, but still looking good over here. And then here is this planter, which talk about a planter that is too small for the plant I have in it. I could water this thing 3 times a day and it wouldn't be happy, especially with all those other things. You can tell that the annuals in it are struggling a little bit, because obviously this was silly to try to jam that in with the Brugmansia. But the Brugmansia is just finally looking absolutely Just look at all those beautiful flowers on it. Really beautiful. It's my first time growing a brugmansia, so I'm a little giddy about it. Beautiful peach color on it. And I've been enjoying it. I don't know whether it'll make an appearance again next year or not, but it's been fun to try that. It just needs a much bigger pot than what it's in. And then lastly, I'll just show you, this is that Aurelia silver umbrella as seen from up on the deck. And you can see that it's starting to kind of come over the stairs a little bit. So I'll probably prune that off, but we have I think it's, oh, here, I'll show you who's watching me carefully right now. See if you can see him. See him? That's Dad. And their nest is right here. And sometimes he won't get too mad at me if I just, oh. There's some little cardinal babies for you. They're not very attractive, most baby birds aren't, but very nice of the cardinals to put a nest perfectly eye level. For us, we move the grill far out of the way when we actually grill, but it's nice to have our feathered friends, even if they don't perhaps trust me while I'm sitting here, build their nest so close. Well, that was a marathon of a tour. I guess when you do one tour a year, they get kind of long. Thank you if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I will try to do some more tours this year if there's something new to look at or something has changed enough to warrant one. But it was fun taking you around the whole garden and looking at everything kind of all at once. Hope you're having a great day in your garden. If you have questions about the garden, feel free to leave them in the comments. Happy to answer anything there. We will see you guys soon. Bye-bye.